Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marilyn. I'm going to be your host for this session today. I see we have a few more people logging in, so I'm just going to give them 1 more minute before we start, but we will definitely start within the next 60 seconds. Thank you. Fantastic. I think we've got a good number of people on the webinar already. Again, good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Ramplin, and it's an absolute honor to welcome you today to another one of the Novia One webinars. Today, we're going to be talking about the transformative power of coaching and mentorship. I'm the CEO of Novia One Business School, and I really would like to thank you for joining us for the session. So what do we want to talk about today? Today, we want to really cover the power of coaching and mentorship, because adaptability, resilience, and collaboration are really so essential for growth. And at the core, coaching and mentorship is really about unlocking your potential. It's really about guiding individuals and organizations through the challenges and to create sustainable success. And today we're going to try and unpack how these practices can really transform careers and lives. Our session today has really been thoughtfully crafted for you. And so the success of this session is really going to depend on how much participation we get from our audience. We have a set of prepared questions that will guide our discussion, but we really want this to be an engaging and collaborative session. So what we're going to ask of you is your input. We're going to ask you for questions, and we're going to ask you for your reflections where you are able to share. Put them in the chat, because this is absolutely vital for us in order to be able to learn from each other. And so we really encourage you to actively participate throughout the session. This space, we feel, is really here for mutual learning. So you will hopefully learn from the panelists that we have selected today, but hopefully we can also learn from some of your experiences. And so today we're going to examine topics like the distinction between coaching and mentoring and how you can leverage both effectively. Then we're going to talk about creating environments that really promote trust and psychological safety when you enter into some of these coaching relationships. We're going to cover fostering accountability and investment in coaching relationships. A lot of money gets spent every single year on coaching. And so we want to look for what levels of accountability do we need to bring to the table as organizations, but also as individuals. And we're going to talk about the ethical considerations that underpin these practices. We're very fortunate today to be joined by our esteemed panelists, and we're privileged to have a very, very experienced set of leaders who will share their insights and practical strategies on these topics. And we're really hoping that you can walk away with a set of really practical examples of tools that you can use when you leave here today. I'm going to ask our panelists in a minute to introduce themselves, briefly tell us who they are, but we have Carabello Celabojo, we have Melisha Awonor, and we have Helena Favir, who's joining us today. I would also like us to just remember Tendani Manshimuli, who was going to join us today. Tendani, unfortunately, or sadly, had a death in her family and couldn't attend today. Tendani, this is just us saying that we are thinking about you today. Again, we really want to encourage you to actively engage in the session. Ask questions, put them in the chat. share an experience or two in the chat. We will try and build on what you put in the chat and actually try and bring as much of that into the conversation so that you become part of the collaboration in terms of how we want to run this session. So without further ado, let's begin with our first introduction. I'm going to start with Carabello. Carabello, could you give us a quick introduction for the session, please? Who you are.
Thank you, Marilyn. Am I visible? Yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. I am Carabello Selebogo, a lead specialist at Liberty in the personal and affluent market space. I have been working for more than 20 years, exposed to the workings of corporates, businesses, and individuals. My career spanning across the energy, telecom, and financial services sectors. I've been in engineering, management consulting, business analysis, and yeah, I've discovered the power of coaching and mentoring as I went along. And I'm very passionate about making positive impacts in business and in people's lives. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic, Carabella. Thank you very much for that. Malisha?
Afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Malisha Auno. Up until 3 months ago, I was still in corporate. I've got just under 30 years experience in corporate, 50% of that time being in mining globally. So in terms of challenges and having to be exposed to various environments, coaching and mentoring played a big role throughout my career, up until the age when I hit 40 and I realized it's time to give back. And that's my primary focus, is being in the background to be able to help everyone be their absolute best. Authenticity is a non-negotiable for me. Driving inclusive cultures is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And yeah, I'm 3 months into being an entrepreneur, so a change in job title, complete pivot in terms of career, which is equally exciting and terrifying at the same time. But thank you for the time today, Marilyn.
Fantastic, Malisha, and welcome to the world of never-ending wondering what tomorrow brings, but also the joy of being able to create something out of nothing. So good luck with that venture. Our last panelist is Helena Verveer. Helena?
Cape Town. I would say that I am very, very happy to be here today. Thank you so much to Marilyn and
Helena, I am just struggling to hear you a little bit. I don't know if it's the same for everyone else. Fantastic.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's always a technical problem. We have to start with a technical problem, guys. So a warm good afternoon from a balmy Cape Town. And my name is Helena Verveer. I'm a learning and development specialist for Liberty, as well as an NLP practitioner. And my passion in the world is about creating change for individuals, understanding that a change in mindset could be the catalyst for change of the life that you want to live. So I have become an NLP practitioner in 2017 and applied those skills and methodologies to my own life first, in order to be able to come and change other people's lives. And the fact that coaching and development and mentoring is such a strong tool in order to transform businesses is always a massive passion of mine. I've been in with international airlines. Most of my training and development had come from, the Swissair University in Switzerland, as well as the American Airlines the university in Dallas, Texas. So we had started the learning and development from an international point of view, and then bringing those skills back to South Africa had given us a big understanding of the difference in terms of leadership culture, as well as our coaching and development. So I'm very, very excited to be here today to share some expertise and obviously to learn some more things. And I'm very proud to be on a panel with these amazing, incredible women. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you very much for that, Helena. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have three powerhouses here with us today to be able to bring their own experience and to share with us what their journeys have been like, but also what they've learned and what are some of those tools that we can take away as individuals. But one of the things I really want to focus through the session as well is something that Helena just said, which was about the power of coaching for organizations as well, because I think businesses really can benefit from that. So we are going to talk about that in a minute. But before we actually start this session, I want us to sort of unpack the common misconceptions about coaching that you have encountered, right? Because we all have an idea of maybe what coaching is and what mentoring is, but what are the real differences? And how can we actually go about addressing them? Carabello, how about I start with you?
Yeah. So one of the misconceptions is that coaching is for underperformance. Yes, it's a growth and development tool, but it benefits all performance levels. So it's not just for underperformers, it's for everyone who wants to reach their next level. Another one is coaching is mentoring. I have a mentor, I don't need a coach. Those are distinct areas. Coaching is about empowering you to find your own solutions. And it's focused on short-term goals, specific outcomes, whereas mentoring is more of a broader career guidance view that's also based on relationship. It's a deeper relationship than the coaching one, which is transactional, specific for a time. And yeah, so the other one is that you will get the coach to give you solutions you want. The coach wants you to come up with your own solutions. So yeah.
Very good on that. Ladies, would anyone like to maybe add anything to what Carabello has just said?
I'm seeing a hand as well.
Okay. We'll go to the hand in a minute. Can I just maybe ask one of our two panelists, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I just would like our two panelists maybe just to see if they wanted to add anything, because I think this is such a fundamental question for us to be able to get right. And I think even when we think about it from an organizational perspective, the difference between coaching and mentoring as well.
I think that what would be beneficial to add, and I think that Carabello beautifully described it, but it's also about when someone hears the term coaching, they think they've done something wrong. And that is not always, I'm so sorry about the noise, that's not always the case. You know, you don't coach someone because they've done something wrong. It is about improved performance. It is also about celebrating the things that people have done well. So we miss such great opportunities to celebrate and create an environment of celebrating development, that we miss out on those things when we lose the impact of what coaching actually is. Mentorship, on the other hand, mentorship is, for me, you can have so many different mentors. It depends on which parts of your life you want to be mentored in. It's not necessarily just a working environment to adapt and to be able to find the right tools and to advance your career. But mentorship can also be about wanting to change something personal about yourself. Maybe you want to stop overthinking. Maybe you want to change how you react to certain things. Maybe you want to identify new ways of conducting yourself. And so mentorship can be internal, external. In fact, I would encourage everybody to always have a mentor, whether it's official or not.
Okay, fantastic. Melisha, would you like to add anything before we go to questions?
I think the ladies said it beautifully.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So just, ladies, if I can kind of summarize what I just took away in terms of what you just said. Coaching is goal-orientated, right? It's structured, it's focused on immediate results, and it's facilitated, right? Whereas on the other hand, when we think about mentoring, it's sort of more relationship-driven, offering long-term guidance and wisdom. And that often goes with somebody who has experience in that specific area, as you've just pointed out, Helena. So thank you for that. We have our first question, which is wonderful input, I'm hoping. question.
Hi, so I see it says Bellissimo. My name is actually Sandra Labella.
Hi, Sandra.
So I think one of the other big misconceptions that I see happening often is that staff believe because they have a mentor or a coach that you will solve all their problems. They will just arrive, sit down next to you, and then just sit with this blank canvas face. And it's like, I'm here for you to now tell me what to do. So I think that also is something that I come across often. Please, can you mentor and coach me? And then they expect you to set all their goals and where they should be going and how they should be approaching it. So I think that's just another thing that, especially as we're going into the new age and the new era, it seems to be happening more and more.
Fantastic, Sandra. Thank you very, very much for that. Ladies, would any of you like to pick up on that specific comment?
I think if I may, I did put in the comments section, it's not a silver bullet, number one, because it's all about a blended approach around why you actually undertaking the journey. But for me, what's more important is that you have to be clear around where the accountability lies. And once that accountability is clear and the blueprint is understood and agreed, then it's very easy to maneuver around those sorts of issues. I think when there's a gray area around, is this appropriate? Should I be doing this? That just makes the process very messy, which is why for me, from a coaching perspective, the blueprint up front has to be signed and agreed. It's a formal contracting process.
Absolutely.
And for me, I'll give you an example. One of my deal breakers is time. So to me, I will always thank people for the gift of their time, because it truly is the one thing that we don't have enough of. And for me, if someone violates that, I tend to, it's like a red flag for me. So those things have to be agreed up front as part of your rules of engagement, so that there is clear understanding of where accountability fundamentally lies. Coaches we don't have magic wands. Just putting it out there, we don't.
Yeah. And Madeline, for someone to come unprepared, for me, it means they won't be invested in the journey as well. It's your goals, it's your objectives, not theirs. It is not driven from inside. So when they come prepared, knowing exactly what they need to take out from that engagement, then that's where they are more invested in the journey and they will do the work.
And so, I mean, this is really an important point in terms of the work you put in. This is not a silver bullet. I suppose it's like a lot of things, right? You're not going to lose 30 kilograms from reading a book, going and sitting next to somebody every day. It's actually putting in the hard graft. And I think the same, what you're saying is this is the same process that we need to follow here. So what are those things that people could do that you would think before every single session, in terms of making sure that they are fully prepared to get the most out of each session? And what is that mindset that they need to come with? Because one of the other things that you mentioned, Helena, is to say, people come to the table thinking, you know, I'm being sent for coaching, which means that I'm an underperformer. And so the mindset's already wrong, right? Somebody's trying to fix me.
Exactly.
How could you change that mindset to try and get the most out of your sessions?
I would love to tackle that question, if that's okay.
Of
I do
course.
see a hand up, so I'm not sure. Do you want to?
Let's answer this one, and I'll come to Pindi. Pindi, I'll
Perfect.
come to you in a minute.
No problem at all. From thinking and looking at what coaching and mentorship actually is, and looking at a business environment, it is clear to me that if the policy is not in place, if procedures are not in place, if education is not in place for individuals who are coaches and coachees, it absolutely needs to be a culture that exists within an organization that is driven from an HR, learning and development, coaching, as well as the operation of that business. If everybody speaks the language of coaching and we create a culture of shared experiences and understanding that coaching is not just about, you know, someone walking into a coaching session and again being expected to have that silver bullet. If we understand and we grow people from inception, from the time they start in our organization, the coaching culture is filtered through from the interview process, through induction, through your learning on the job, if we understand what coaching is and we know what our rights are as coaches and coachees, I think that when we speak the same language where coaching is concerned, that we can create an environment of accountability for each person involved in that coaching process.
I think that's really important to be able to make sure, as you say, the rules of the game are sort of clearly defined upfront before the start, in order to make sure that both the coach and the coachee kind of knows what the deliverables are. And,
1000%.
you know, I've even had people who said that they went to their coach to ask them for taxpayer because they kind of run out of money to be able to get somewhere. And so those are some of the rules that I think we need to be able to be very clear about. What are the rules?
Absolutely.
Pindi, your hand was up.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Actually, Vivia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Helena.
Helena. Thank you. Apologies. Thank
No
you for
problem at all.
correcting me.
Of course.
So, thank you. You are right on my words, because I thought like maybe people need to be educated, because maybe the assumption is that everyone understands, you know, what it is, and they go in that room thinking that, oh, here's my life is about to change, you know. And I like, Marilyn, when you said we need to educate, we need to have, Helena, actually you said the same thing, that we need to have things in place as a business, to a point that I've put this down in my planning for next year, for 2025, to create an understanding, create an education for our colleagues, because I know for a fact that people want coaching, but they don't know that they need to bring, you know, work.
Absolutely.
Like the answers are within the beholder, you know, like Karabelo has said, that all the answers are within me. So I'm very excited, and nice to meet you ladies. So it's in my plan to educate and also coming to you for advisors, and it's very exciting. Thank you so much.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding, Pindi.
And fantastic, Pindi. That's such a really a good sort of feedback to build on this. And maybe then, Karabella, I have a question for you. Darshana made a good comment to say that where coaching clients have come to a session as a learning and development session, right? How do you make sure? And I think Belinda also said 90% of my time in my experience as it's been a tick box exercise and not something that is a positive. Karabello, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think like everything else, the why is very important. Why you are starting this journey. So if someone is just coming because the manager suggested it won't be a valuable exercise. But the other thing that people don't realize is that as much as it's provided in the workspace, it's there to create that balance between your professional and personal life. It's not one. You are bringing your all, because some of the blockers will come from your your personal life. So you bringing everything into this space. That's why it's important to sit before you start, to say, what is it that I want to get out? Do I want to move this part of my life? Do I want to enhance this skill in my life, in my professional life? So you need to be clear as an individual. Then you can take that forward and say, I think I need coaching for this.
And so from the discussion here, Karabella, it kind of comes out that often it's the organization that suggests that a coach is needed. Melisha, how do you go about going to your boss and asking for a coach without trying to seem like a problem child yourself? You know, sort of create the opposite perception at the other end that, you know, this person's got a problem.
So I think if the environment is a psychologically safe one, it won't be seen as something negative, right? And for me, at the end of the day, and maybe it's because you go through the school of hard knocks, in an environment that is very corporate, sometimes we attach shame to people asking for help, which I call BS on, and I'm sorry, it's not business school language, right? We have to create that psychological safety that says, you know what, I need help. I don't know how. How can we go on this journey together? And for me, I know people overuse the term psychological safety, but if I can be my true self without fear of shame, that's a sign of psychological safety. If we invite or allow our people to fail forward, that is an indication of what psychological safety looks like. So I'm very cautious to use words that sometimes become fads without really truly understanding, what does this look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? So for me, that's psychological safety. In an environment where you may not have that, then I think a perfect opportunity, and I'm a previous people and culture specialist, to be able to approach your relative person in people and culture to say, I need help. Can you help me navigate this? Because once again, it's taking away the fact that HR is seen as the boogie man or boogie person in the organization, to be able to hold a person's hand through this. That is what the profession's about, is for people to be able to show up being their true self. So for me, it's psychological safety. The second part is whether it's an inclusive culture or not. So do I have to look a certain way, talk a certain way in order to be offered certain opportunities? Or is the fact that I need to translate something in a different language before I respond, does my boss think that I don't have the right thought, quick enough responses and thought processes? So the root of it is psychological safety. And for me, we have to normalize leaders also being vulnerable, right? Because leaders don't have we don't have all of the answers all of the time. Whereas if you enter an arrangement with your team that says, let's co-create this, you can unleash some fantastic things.
Manisha, thank you very much. Arabello, how would you sort of approach that from a team leader's perspective? You're a team leader, and you now need to go and find some form of coaching infrastructure in the organization. Well, there's nothing that has really been set up in terms of structure. Like, big organizations have got structure. Some small organizations may not have that structure. What would your advice then be for team leaders who would like to leverage the power of coaching and mentoring? And how would you kind of steer them to sort of try and create that?
I think for small organizations, because it seems like big organizations, most of them have that in place. But for small organizations, I would start with maybe creating that team that looks after the interests of the employees, and to say, you know what, these are some of the development areas in this organization, and you approach. It can be an individual, it can be a coaching company, and you co-create that with your team as well. Bring them in so that they feel like they are coming up with a solution for themselves as well.
Helena, do you want to add anything to that?
I'd love to. I'm sure you can see me jittery. You can see me jittery because I want to say so many things. I do also believe that there's such specific boundaries that we need to create in a coaching environment. The coaches also need a space where they can come and go and say, I've had difficulty coaching this particular individual. What can I do about it? So the coaching supervision is such a critical part for the development of our coaches. Another thing that I wanted to say is that in leadership, how are we leading if we cannot understand our people? So part of leadership is being able to pass on skill and knowledge, also part of delivering, negative feedback, and also about celebrating the wins. So once we understand the dynamic of a leader and we look at the characteristics that's going to empower the people, because the people are the most important, that's your most important asset. In order for them to improve performance, we need to have a foundation of skills in our repertoire that is going to be able to support those individuals who are coaching the individuals that's front facing or that is client facing. So there was a lot that I said in that, but I'm sure that you ladies and all our guests today are able to understand, or if not, you are welcome to add it to the chat and I would be happy to elaborate.
Fantastic. I've got a question. Let me just see whose hand do I have up. Is Kirsten your surname or is it Dialan? Dialan, please go ahead.
Thanks everyone. It's Dialan from Nedbank. Thank you for the interesting conversation. If leadership is all about people, why is it that some organizations are so much forward in the coaching, mentorship sort of culture, conversation, strategy, but others are sort of behind? What is it that is sort of preventing the next step? Is it a leadership issue? In other words, does it start from the top or is it a bottom-up approach?
A very good question. Who'd like to take that?
I don't mind taking it. So for me, it depends on the environment. If you have a CEO or leadership team who are very high from an EQ perspective, it becomes a no-brainer. Whereas if you have a leadership team that is just bottom line driven, then you're going to have a different kind of situation. And what I find, and sorry, I didn't get your name, is often when you can demonstrate that through having these sorts of programs, it has a direct positive impact on the bottom line. You have reduced performance issues, you have reduced trust issues, and that all translates into profitability. So it's win-win-win. But it's how you choose to present the business case, number one, and number two, to be able to demonstrate. Outside of, because people often think people and culture and HR are warm and fuzzy, right? But let's deal in facts. Facts are, if we don't create environments where people can truly thrive and have access to coaching, have access to mentoring, those are the people that become part of the disengaged statistics, right? Those are the people that eventually become the passage terrorists, as I call them. So for me, it's an integrated approach between L&D, coaching, the psychological safety. All of that creates an inclusive culture where everyone can thrive and therefore businesses can thrive. So to me, deal facts. And facts are disengaged employees impacts your bottom line. People that you don't invest in impacts your bottom line. And in everything that's happening with 4IR and 5IR, if you're not at the leading edge, stop arguing about the war for talent if you're not willing to invest in talent.
That was powerful.
Very good. Did you want to add anything to that, Lena?
I think that, like you said earlier, Melisha, you said that the term psychological safety is thrown out there all the time. And I would like to ask a question, and that is, what does psychological safety mean to everybody? What does it mean to you? For me, it means I need to be able to show up authentically and be respected for that. But a lot of times, ego plays a massive role. Unhealthy ego plays a massive role in our inability to produce better results. And those types of things is where my passion comes in, because why is there an unhealthy ego when we have psychological safety? What is happening in everybody's background? No two people are the same, yet everybody's perfect. Well, perfectly imperfect, shall we say. So if I'm bringing my authentic self that does not match with someone else's authentic self, what do we do about that? And that's where psychological safety comes in for me, because how are we respecting each other without trying to force our opinion onto a situation?
Very good point, Carabella. Should your manager then be your coach? Or what are the challenges with that?
Sure, that becomes, a challenging one, because you may have a good relationship with your manager and have that trusting, open relationship, but there are some things that you feel if you bring them to the fore will affect the relationship. She will see you differently. So I would say the manager can be a guide, a coach in terms of deliverables for work, but in terms of bringing your all, I wouldn't advise it.
Okay, good. So then I'm going to throw the next question up. the question of internal versus external coaches, right? Alicia, I'm going to start with you. Internal, external, pros, cons, and then Helen, I'm going to give you the same question as well.
So I don't have a very popular view in relation to this because I think each has its advantages and disadvantages. So internally, I think there would be nothing more fantastic than all leaders being coaches, right? So if the why is around coaching for performance, our leaders are trained in how to coach. And when I say performance, guys, I'm not talking about performance improvement and substandard performance and all of that. I'm talking about the step change in performance that takes you from target to stretch. If it is an organization-wide initiative that says we will train up our leaders will be coaching for performance, what better way than leading by example? That I don't have a concern about. Where it gets tricky is that, and I say this with the utmost respect to leaders and managers, is when it comes time to people being vulnerable about things. I can't tell you the number of times I've had conversations where someone will say, mention something that may have been in a coaching session that was said in a safe environment that comes to prejudice them now. That's a no-go for me, right? So that parameters around what gets said there stays there, a little bit like Las Vegas coaching, you know, whatever gets said in that has to stay there, requires a degree of maturity. It requires a degree of stepping back and saying, the fact that someone felt comfortable enough to say that to me, I will protect that with everything I have. Not everybody has that degree of maturity. So the internal side for me it can be fantastic from a lead by example. We all driving towards stretch performance to outperform competitors. Fantastic. Be aware of the red flag around confidentiality. For me, the external side of coaching, which is my preferred one, is that the person doesn't have this vested interest. So I don't have to come in and think, oh my God, is this person going to phone my manager and tell them I've fallen off the rails, right? Or is this purely around the bottom line? Or if I check into work tomorrow, are they going to put me through a performance improvement process? That agnostic, objective coach allows to me, and maybe this is my frame of reference, allows me to be much more free in my thought and in my sharing than in an environment where someone is going to decide my annual increase, where someone's going to decide my performance rating. So both have their place. I tend to lean more towards the external for a particular reason, but I think if your business strategy, just say for 2025, is to create a step change in performance, then something like coaching for performance would be fantastic. But there has to be the maturity. The coaches themselves need to understand the coaching framework. And I think for me, internally as well, is understanding what to do if someone gets triggered, which not everyone is trained to actually do. And it can sometimes get to that point. So
1000%.
the ability to do that is important. I'm going to hand over to Helena.
Helena?
I totally agree with you. I think that how you described and what you had said is so incredibly valuable. And, you know, internal coaching it's difficult to create that from someone who was already in a leadership position and now to train them to be a coach. So when the interview process comes through for a leader, there should be an element of characteristics that we look for that would create a good coach. Because you can have someone that leads a group of people beautifully but cannot coach. Right? And you could also have a situation where that person cannot coach. They outsource coaching to someone else in the organization. But there has to be that element of trust, clear communication, and understanding your own triggers as well as the possibility of triggering someone else. If we don't have the emotional quotient to be able to handle that type of situation, or, you know, it's going to become a very big problem for those individuals involved in the scenario moving forward. So I totally agree. I think that externally, someone comes in, they're completely objective. We discuss the goal. There's certain things that we need to do in order to achieve that goal. Whereas internally, it can have positive and negative influences for an organization.
Yeah.
Carabello?
Yeah, just adding to that, the other thing we need to remember is that there's an ethical obligation for coaches, whether internal or external. And yes, some companies will not have the budget to bring in external coaches. Internally, it may not be my manager who coaches me, but a manager in another team who is bound by these ethical obligations for confidentiality, integrity, and honesty to make sure that at least I'm protected or I feel safe.
Thank you for that, Carabello. So then the question on that is, so you now have a business and this business goes out and they spend a lot of money on coaches, etc. How can the coach then balance confidentiality with the organization's need to be able to get feedback on the effectiveness on the program? Otherwise, how am I going to determine then potentially as a business whether this is effective or not? How would you like people to think about that? Who'd like to take that?
I'll take it. I think, and I think it's Malaysia who said it first, clear contracting in the beginning in terms of what's expected from the coachee and the coach from an organizational perspective as well. And then as a coach, when you give the feedback, remember you are bound by confidentiality. You aggregate it. You do not go on specifics and say, yeah, by the way, she said this is the area that needs to be improved, her marriage, her whatever is failing, whatever. You don't bring that into the picture. You just aggregate that this person has personal challenges that are coming in and affecting her performance in the workspace. And regular check-ins with the organization to give them feedback in terms of what they expect to see or what they expect to get out of that coaching relationship.
Can I add to your Carabello, if you don't mind? I'd just like to add to you. When you define coaching, it is not counseling. When we define coaching, it is not mentorship. So the clear definition of what we are there to achieve, that also needs to be clearly defined in terms of what is the role of this coach. Because if someone comes to me and I'm trained as a coach for improved performance, and you come and share with me something that is personal, that affects your performance, and I don't know how to handle that, there might be a complete lack of trust. Rapport is out of the door. And those two people can never actually ever be in a room together to coach, because their safety was not something that was of a high priority, not because of that leader as a coach necessarily, but was he taught that there's a difference between coaching and counseling? You know what I mean?
That's a very, very good point. Very good point. Okay, then on that point, when do you fire your coach? Who wants to go?
So to me, if there's a breach of trust, that would be the primary thing. But we also can't just say you fire them, because sometimes they may be saying things you really don't want to hear, which is what you really need to hear to get you through a particular obstacle or that sort of thing. So it's not as transactional as you're fired. To me, the one thing is, if the trust is broken, it's not worth anyone's time. But to not quit so easily that, you know, this person is not saying the things that I like to hear, because ego plays a role in this as well, right? And the fact that every session I have with Melisha, she's saying things I don't like and it makes me uncomfortable, I'm firing her. Coaching is not meant to be comfortable. Neither is mentoring. So for me, my thing would be is if the trust relationship is broken.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Mm.
Then there's the question of individual coaching versus group coaching. What's your view on that? Helena, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much. The individual coaching it's structured, it's defined. It's one person. It's my job as the coach to ask very specific questions, leaning towards what we want to be able to achieve. Language is extremely important. In group coaching, it's about facilitating a process where your team are in a room together, coming up with some kind of solution to an issue or a process or a standard operating procedure, whatever the case might be. Our job as a group coach would be to facilitate that learning, to make sure that everybody gets an equal opportunity to speak, that we write down what these ideas are, and together we decide on a very specific deliverable coming out of that session. Whereas one-on-one, it is very specific around performance, especially when it's developmental coaching. It is performance, where we are now versus where we want to be, and how are you as the coachee going to take accountability for yourself while I support you, but I don't do the work for you in order for you to get to that goal. So that's quite a completely different experience for group coaching versus individual coaching.
Fantastic. Would anyone like to add anything to that? Okay, great. Then I have the question of work from home. Has that made a difference in terms of coaching in general? And especially where you have this relationship potentially where leaders get involved in coaching some of their team members.
From my perspective, the change between face-to-face versus virtual, because there was already, I had already done some background trying to understand what happens when someone works from home and they're not in the same environment, so it has to be online. And already trying to implement certain things. So the transition for me was quite simple and easy because, again, it's also got a lot to do with how we say things. So virtual versus face-to-face, I don't see a difference, to be honest with you. Not that it isn't different, but for me personally, I don't feel different whether it's online or whether it's face-to-face.
Okay, great. Melisha or Carabella, did you want to add anything to that?
No, she put it beautifully.
Fantastic. I have a question from Nomaliso.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to what Helena was saying around virtual versus in-person coaching. I know that we've shifted more to the online and virtual coaching, but I think in the place, especially of a coach, it's very important that you create, like in your surroundings, it must be something that you like the space that you're in, it must be quiet. You must, be very present and be very engaged because when someone comes through with a request for coaching, for example, there's a lot that's happening in their life at that time, and there's a lot that they're juggling with. So you need to be cognizant of the fact that this person might be physically present, but their mind might be, in a million other places. So creating an environment that's conducive to engagement, to, having that communication, giving that person that ease and that comfort around whatever will be raised. I think, obviously cameras on, but stuff like a quiet environment, feeling like I'm the only person in the room. So it's not something that someone who's a bystander or sitting in the next room will be privy to the conversation that's been happening. So you have to be very intentional about the kind of environment that you create for a coachee. And it goes back to psych safety, all that stuff. It kind of weighs back into that. So that's just
I agree with you fully. I fully agree with you. And another thing that I'd like to add to what you're saying is that, when you are coaching, sometimes people want evidence of that coaching. So sometimes the virtual coaching is recorded. How are we meant to guarantee confidentiality when we are saving videos in a shared location? There are things in virtual coaching that's not necessarily conducive to creating that safe environment. I agree with you. Someone mentioned something about body language. There's micro changes in body language that you can pick up on a virtual coaching session as well. So there's all and that's why I was saying, like, you know, when you go in and you go and research what might be the difference between virtual coaching and face-to-face coaching, and you go and look at that and you go, okay, so these are the challenges that I'm faced with if I'm not face-to-face and I am virtual. What can I do about that? And once I've discovered what I can do about that, start to implement a strategy for virtual coaching and create that environment in your organization with those safety elements in place where we consider the risks of doing it on a virtual versus face-to-face session. So I agree with you. And then I wanted to just add something extra as well. But I liked your comment. Thank you so much.
And
Helena,
Madeline,
thank you very much for that. Oh, sorry, go, Carabello.
yeah, just adding to that, another thing with working from home, and it's a plus because it has made coaching accessible even outside working hours, which may be a negative because you get someone at the end of the day where they come into the session tired already, and as much as they try, they are not fully present. So those are some of the things that you need to agree with the coachee in terms of the time. It could be just after homework time, it could be during dinner, whatever, you know, but you need them fully present. So getting the right time is key.
I absolutely agree with you because, and just to quickly share with you that when I train the coaches, there is an element of time management that has to be incorporated into coaching skills. I would never suggest that anybody coaches after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're going to coach someone, coach them in the morning because what you've coached them on must be practically applied same day in order for that neurological pattern to change. They're doing something, you want them to do something different. For that to happen, I can't have 24 hours until that person accepts or applies that skill. So in my training, I will say to people, coach in the morning, do your admin in the afternoon. Never coach on a Friday. Start on a Monday. Monday to Thursday, you coach from 9 o'clock until 2:30, and then you do your admin in preparation for your follow-ups, in preparation for your check-ins, because you must have absolute evidence that the person has practically applied the skill. Only then can we go, that coaching intervention was successful. Now let's make sure that that coaching topic is applied consistently. You know, so another idea that I have for you all is also to create sort of an addendum to a KPI. If someone has got a coaching, if they're on a coaching journey, why are we not assessing what or how they've been able to change their mindset to apply a new strategy for a better outcome? Why are we not celebrating that in terms of a key performance indicator on our KPIs?
May
Bernie,
I
I'm
ask
gonna come-
Helena a question?
Of course.
Sorry.
Go,
Do you
Manisha.
not find, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? I think in corporate, what we do is we don't look at performance, development, and talent all being an integrated process. Because in the absence of being able to demonstrate change behavior, where's your ROI on any of this? So it's maybe not
We
a
can
question,
measure-
but I'm on the same page as you.
Absolutely, because there's two things here. You got to look at return of engagement. How did that person feel? How did the attitude change? And then return on investment. Did that person apply the new way of doing things? So there's a two-prong approach. Someone can go, oh my God, that coaching was amazing, but never apply the skill. So it's a fine line because you have to go and check that the skill was applied, and this is why follow-up is so important. It's something that I advocate for all day, every day. Have you followed up? Has the skill been applied? Have they demonstrated that they can now do things differently? If that is the case, then you cannot coach on that again. Why are we coaching on the same thing when all that is absent is application.
And so
And
we
this
talk
is
about
also-
KPIs for the coachee. What about KPIs for the coach? But I'm going to come back to you on this one now. Bernie's had a hand up for a while.
Sorry, Bernie.
Bernie?
Yes, thank you. I'm enjoying this tremendous. Helena and Malisha, you kept on talking about evidence, and how to apply it, because remember, with the grow model, application is so important. So that will be the return of investment. But my question, especially to you, Malisha, as an external provider, the confidentiality, where do we draw the line when you're done with the coaching? You've done your 6 sessions or 5, and now you must give evidence to the leader. What's your view on that? Where can you give all the information, whereas it's confidentiality, you're talking about such, intense information, but you need to give the leader a report so the leader can take over the coaching. Just give me your view. How did you manage, especially with your being an external provider? I'm always fascinated about that part, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I think Carabello highlighted it when she used the domestic issue as an example. For me, on the contracting upfront, the contracting is beyond the process. The contracting includes the outcome. And if there's a disconnect between that outcome and what my leader needs, okay, that's a red flag 1 already, right? Because there's not going to be true value. In giving feedback, it can be agnostic in relation to the behaviors. So we agreed that I don't know, Helena, I don't know you very well, but I feel comfortable enough to say this. Helena is not assertive enough. And in order for her to be able to get to the sales targets she needs, we need her to be assertive. So one is, what does that look like? So when you do your contracting, it's not just we need Helena to be more assertive. It's what are those behavior changes we need to see, right? And in the habit forming, which is the reinforcing of the changes you want, you can say, in relation to assertiveness, I understand that culturally, and God, my biases are coming through very strongly now, I apologize. Culturally, Helena is too shy in order to be assertive in a session. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be violating the confidentiality. If those change behaviors are written down and agreed as part of the contracting, you can provide the feedback. For me, where we have to be very careful is if there's trauma attached to something that you can't get your coachee across, then that requires one-on-one with your coachee to say, how do we best explain this in a way that can help you? Because you don't want to prejudice the person.
Thank you. Marisha, that again, I think is such a great answer. Are there any more questions from anyone? I'd really like you guys to bring your questions and your comments to the fore, seeing that we have 3 wonderful ladies happy to share their own life experiences, but also their own sort of experience and expertise in this specific field. Somebody is saying, for me, a coach must be an SME on a specific topic or a process. So it's almost transactional, right? Whereas a mentor must be a role model or a person with life experiences and high EQ, i.e. soft skills. How would you like to respond to that? Helena Carabello?
A coach does not need to be an SME. Let's blow your minds just a little bit today. A coach does not need to be an SME. Coaching is a skill which takes a person from where they currently are to where they need to be. Listen to the wording, where they need to be. Whether that's in line with a job description, KPI, it doesn't matter. Where do they need to be? In order to do that, we need to structure very specific questions, because I will promise you that an individual, a coachee, will judge themselves way worse than you would. If you were to say to me, where are your development areas? I'm going to have a list. But if you say to me, what are things that you do really well? I might struggle with that. I might struggle with that. So a coach does not need to be an SME. A coach needs to understand how to get a person to change the mindset around getting from here to the destination. I'm going to leave that as that, and I'm going to ask my beautiful panelists to share with their opinions as well.
So if you want the coach to be an SME, it means you're expecting answers from your coach. You will not do the work. That's why you just come with your questions. The coach provides solutions.
Yeah.
So no, the coach mustn't be an SME.
Okay.
I like to use, so sorry, Marilyn. I like to use the example of, you know, some of us are parents in the room, and it's so cool to be able to think about coaching, not just in a working environment, but what that means for whole life, for your whole life. Being able to coach can change the dynamic of your entire life. Therefore, I'm saying, when you teach your child that I will get you water, when you want water, I will get you water. That child will continuously come to you and ask for water until you teach said child to gather their own water. Then they don't need. So are we trying to create attachments to ourselves, or are we trying to create independence? Independence is what we're trying to create. And so therefore, it is so vitally important to give the skill to that individual to be able to take that. I always think of it this way. When you coach someone, you're actually shifting the mindset, right? You can take that same shifting of mindset and apply it to other strategies in your life or other areas in your life. It is just a quick change of how we perceive things and how we can take this new understanding and apply it to certain areas in our lives that require realignment. I hope that that made sense on a biggest level.
So Helena, let's say we have someone on the call today. They're in a leadership role, or they manage a team, or they've now been told they have to go and coach their team, or they've been given the responsibility of coaching a non-team member. What are the tools that you could give at sort of a very high level to that individual in terms of how they need to approach it as a coach in terms of trying to get the best out of a coachee? And I know this is now a lot of training that you would normally give that I'm trying to sort of distill down to a single answer.
Yeah. In my personal opinion, it would be the being able to build rapport and being able to display trust. Show and build trust. How we communicate is also extremely important. And again, we can go into a session and go, you did this wrong, or I can go, how do you think you could improve in order to create a different outcome for yourself? Again, not an SME, just a specific question towards the goal, not to highlight the error, but towards the goal. If we can teach people to be able to have that form of communication, then we will find so much more success in every single coaching environment. And that comes down to learning. It's lifelong learning. We as coaches need to be on a learning journey ourselves in order to support a coachee who's going through a learning journey. I must apologize. Menopause is rife in Cape Town and in my home today. So if I am dabbing myself, it is because I don't want to be shining too much in this session. So thank you for the understanding. And again, just to reiterate, it is so important for you to be on a learning journey yourself, whether that is in the organization or in your personal life. What are you contributing to your own learning as a coach? And how are you going to communicate that to a coachee who you are trying to influence to create change within their lives? So again, just to reiterate, trust, clear communication, mutual accountability. That is extremely important just up front. I'm sure I'm missing quite a bit, but just in the interest of this quick conversation, I'm going to go with those things.
Okay, great. Would you guys like to add anything to that? Melisha, Carabello, for anyone who's now been put in a space of you got to go and coach somebody and they think, oh my God, I haven't got a cooking clue what I'm doing.
Yeah. So education and training is important, but so is providing a toolkit of some sort for this individual, because they don't know, like we were saying, some of the rules, the processes in terms of coaching. But it's all about getting the best out of your team at the end of the day. But you are bound by confidentiality and all of these things while you're doing it. But from an organizational perspective, making sure you give the right support, training, and education is very important.
Mm.
You know, one of the things I learned many, many years ago that actually I think is such a valuable lesson, whether it's a coach or anything else, is that the quality of our questions will really often determine the quality of the outcomes of what we're trying to achieve. And I think maybe then as a coach, we need to learn how to ask good questions.
And prepare them.
And prepare them.
Yeah.
From a coaching perspective. We've got another question. Gugu.
Toolkit.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Yes. So thank you so much for this beautiful topic. What I've just, because I'm a coach myself, what I pick up is we expect team leaders to coach, and to be honest with you, they actually don't do it well because like you are saying, the questioning techniques is a problem. So they lean more towards the telling of how you should do it. And what we usually say is that if you tell someone what to do, they won't take accountability and they won't grow. But that's the shortest way of actually doing it. So it's about asking a person so that they can give you a solution. Therefore, that solution is what goes into your action points ad verbatim to say, this is what we agreed or you said you will be able to do. Am I correct? So therefore, even when I come back, it's not what I told you. It's about, I asked questions, you came up with the solution, which is easier for you to actually adapt and be accountable for that. And another thing that I've picked up with coaches is that they don't diagnose their people. You need to know who your person is. So what jeopardizes relationships with a coach and a coachee is that if a person already knows what to do, but you keep on training them, that's going to jeopardize your relationship because I already know. It might be a matter of, I don't want to do it because somebody was promoted and I didn't get a promotion. There's so many things that might be happening. So we usually say you need to be able to categorize to say, is this a training issue? Or is it a matter of, you know what, I know, but I don't want to do it. So that's why we say, if a person already knows what to do, it's a matter of you now wanting to find out, okay, how can I be able to help you, but asking relevant questions which are solution orientated so that they can be able to implement it. So what leaders do is that when they coach, they use blanket approach for everybody. This is how we coach, this is what they said we must do, without being able to give you feedback, because usually I'd go back to say, have you coached this particular person in your graph, in your metrics? Where is this person sitting? What have you diagnosed? Because you diagnose the person by asking those relevant questions. If you are unable to tell where this person is, but you're coaching, it might also be a problem because you're not really sure where you're actually taking this person.
1000%.
That's my 2 cents.
Gugu, thank you very much for that really valuable input as well. Thank you, Gugu. Mulder?
On the back of what Gugu said, I also coach and I work a lot with team leaders, and I definitely see a huge difference in the way that the team leader approaches coaching their employees if they have had the training versus if they have not. And I think that's a fundamental kind of gap or step that is skipped in a leader's development, especially first-time leaders. So someone who's promoted to team leader roles that doesn't get first-time manager training, that doesn't get at least a fundamental overview or guidelines for coaching employees, because especially as team leaders in a lot of environments, they are required to coach their employees. And it not only affects the quality of the coaching, obviously, but it affects their approach to the coaching. So we mentioned earlier the I'm in trouble, so I'm being coached versus this is for my development. So if the coach themselves go in without that knowledge, or at least some understanding of how to make a coaching session successful, how to ask the right questions instead of going in and saying, why did you do that? So, and when they don't have those skills, when they don't have that background, they go into the session themselves, dreading it and viewing it as I have to do this because the person did something wrong, mentality and mindset. So I think that's a problem that should be
1000%.
addressed by leadership and training and development.
Fantastic. Mulder, thank you very much, Helena.
I would just
Thank
like
you.
to
Thank you, Mulder.
I would like to compliment Gugu and Mulder on identifying that, because you're absolutely right. And oftentimes what we find, and the present company does not need to be included, but what I've noticed is that we employ the people who show certain characteristics as leaders. The fundamental behavior of an individual to lead is to understand themselves first. So we don't always get those people in a leadership position. Sometimes we take someone that has achieved 100% of their performance, but they're not necessarily a leader. And also, we now are experiencing buzzwords around the coaching and so forth. And coaching has been around since day one. You know, you watch movies and you watch how a coach comes along and all of a sudden the team performs well. He didn't do anything. First of all, he probably didn't have that skill. And secondly, all of a sudden the team is doing better. What that tells me is that there needs to be the ability to change someone's mindset in order for them to have improved performance. And a lot of times we don't invest in a leader to be able to do that. You were talking about diagnostics, Google. I agree with you. Are the people in charge of teams able to do a gap analysis for their teams? Where are you now versus where you were a month ago? What kind of analysis is being done in order to identify the particular areas of performance coaching? And another thing is, what happens when what you've identified as the problem is actually not the problem? The problem is not that I can't perform. The problem is that something else is going on. And that will only be unearthed if we ask the right questions. Preparation for coaching is key. Absolutely
Fantastic,
key.
Helen. Melisha?
So just in addition, I think we take ordinarily organizations take functional specialists and give them leadership roles, right? So you could have your rock star, I don't know, rock engineer, and then put them into a leadership role, and then it becomes a disaster. But I think as organizations, do we have a language to refer to things when it comes time to diagnose something? Because what may be, and I'm going to go back to my previous example of assertiveness, what I may perceive as assertiveness could be something different. So having that language and related behaviors is very important. Nothing drives me more insane than when I see development plans where people say, Excel. Ooh, like if you want to trigger me, right? Having the proper, when we say assertive, these are the related behaviors. So once again, it's that touch, that feel, because it takes away, and I think someone wrote it in there earlier about it being warm and fuzzy. It really isn't. And you being an NLP practitioner will know exactly what I'm saying. There is proper data to support all of this. So one, make sure you gear people up for success if you're promoting them into leadership roles. And two, have a framework that takes away the emotion, that takes away the subjectivity, that allows for proper diagnosis and therefore proper remediation.
1000%. Love that.
So our next webinar is on AI and innovation. Do you think AI bots could become good coaches?
No.
We were
on,
my
doing
ladies,
opinion.
push
so
yourselves
well.
a bit, you know.
Helena, we were doing so well.
I know we were doing so well, but I'm here to keep my job. I also need to keep my job.
No.
I'm joking.
So-
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We
We will
need
only
to.
be replaced by AI, by those people who adopt AI before us.
Yes, it's true. That is true. I'm
So-
kidding. I'm kidding.
In one of the comments I made earlier, and sorry, I typed it out, is that the future of work is human. AI is there to deal the transactional, to do the admin, to all of that. AI learns its ethics from us. So you could create a bot for those people that want subject matter experts as coaches. You could create a bot for that, right? But the high touch, high personalization that is required for this day and age does require for me this,
Yeah.
the human side.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it can't help with diagnosis. It doesn't mean it can't help with monitoring change of behavior. So, and AI is like a hobby horse for me. I'm like reading voraciously, like how can we use this
No, it's
better?
outstanding.
And I think for people in culture, it's a tipping point, right? You're either going to harness it and you're
Or
going to
left behind.
fly, or you're going to crash. Sorry, Marilyn.
True.
No. I was just asking that tongue in cheek, ladies. Okay. Carabello, I have a different question for you. You know, they say when things come for free, that often there is not much appreciation, or this level of commitment is not the same. When organizations offer coaching to individuals, should there be some sort of financial commitment from the individual to kind of make this I don't know, to increase the level of commitment from the coachee? Or is that a bit far-fetched?
It's a bit of both, actually. I remember when I was doing my coaching training, they said you must charge even as little as 50 rands, because that's when people will feel invested. But there are other ways to get people invested without making them pay. And I think clear contracting is always coming up, clear goals and benefits of coaching in terms of where you want to go as an individual, and engagement and ownership. If a person can take ownership of the coaching journey, they will be invested. And sometimes, yes, the company may not have the money, and the individual will pay for themselves because they see the benefit of coaching. But in terms of the company always paying for development, it's not a must. The individual, if they see it's a need in their lives, they must pay for that. But if the company can provide that, the individual who takes that opportunity needs to be invested and make sure that they take ownership of the journey and they drive it to success.
Very good. Anyone like to add anything to that? I see Seema's got a hand up. Seema?
I just wanted to have a question around the importance of relationship building, because I believe that to ask the right questions, you need to get to know the person well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just your thoughts around relationship building.
I take this one if that's okay with the ladies.
Yeah.
So Seema, personally, the trajectory of my career has always been that of being in charge of people or leading people or managing. And what I noticed is that no two people are the same, and everybody's imperfectly perfect. So what that means is I needed to figure out different strategies and different ways of being able to identify what differences are there for individuals. And so personality profiling might be a topic that you want to maybe invest in to understand not necessarily where the person lives and what time they go sleep at night, but more along the lines of what is their preferred style of communication. And once you adapt to this style of communication, in that is building trust. Because I'm speaking to someone, for example, if you were a completely analytical individual who liked detail you liked examples, and you liked something tangible. I know that in my coaching session, I need to make sure that there's enough detail, that you have a handout afterwards, and that we can have a conversation where your questions will not be perceived as a threat because you're analytical. Does that make sense? So when it's talking about relationship building, we're talking about what are the characteristics that we can look out for that will help us to create that opportunity to build trust. I hope that answered your question in a way, because
Yes,
it's
it does.
extremely valuable, extremely valuable. Also, how you conduct yourself. Are you a trustworthy person? Are you walking the talk? It's pointless I'm saying coaching is incredible, but I then don't involve myself in coaching as a coachee myself. And that's why it's so important for the coach and the coachee.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, there we go.
I think they were
Sorry,
cheering
Elena.
for. I think they were cheering for what I was going to say. So, so again, if you are on a learning journey, and the coachee that you're coaching is on a learning journey, imagine how much you can connect with that person about. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. Is it worthwhile? 1000%. Because what are you going to get out of it? So
Okay.
relationship building is key. It's key.
Absolutely, as I think in many other spheres of our lives,
Thank you.
especially with AI coming. Okay,
Yeah.
here's another question. Somebody goes up to the organization and says, you know, I would really like a coach. And the answer is, you're just not senior enough to justify being coached. Do you want to maybe talk us through the difference between life coaching, business coaching, career coaching, executive coaching, just so that people can kind of understand where these things fit in, right? And maybe what are some of the alternatives that they could go and look for if the answer is you're just not senior enough to justify coaching? I'm happy. Carabello, anything to add on that?
So, and I think I've said it before that previously coaching was reserved for the upper echelons in organizations. It was exclusive to executives and stuff. But if, like Malisha was saying before, if organizations understood the benefit of coaching for all levels, then it's a no-brainer. You don't have to say, no, you are not senior enough, but you have to look at the benefit for the company. What is it bringing for you to coach this or get this person coached? So I don't think it has to do with seniority, but the needs of your employees.
Okay,
Fully agree.
thank you. Anyone want to add anything to that?
I don't know,
Okay.
maybe this is a bit too left field from my side. So my view is that the new wave of leadership and way of being involves a certain degree of volunteerism. So, but maybe it's a personal thing. So I know, like, every quarter I take on board a new cohort of people, 3 women. Sorry to be very specific, but we have to give back to our communities in some way. So if you are in that position to be able to give your hours, I think for me, we all have a responsibility to the next generation to start building that it's a form of structural exclusion, right? The fact that you need to pay a certain amount of money for coaching hours. I think for those of us who are in that environment should be, and once again, it's a personal view, dedicating a certain amount of our time to giving back so that we are able to get to everybody and not, it's not just to know that we don't have the budget for it.
Very good, Malisha. I do think that one day we will be judged by how many people we brought on this journey along with us. One of the things that you talked about, Malisha, in our sort of prep session was this concept of reversed role. So somebody has just posted a question around how do we overcome the generational gaps between coaches and coachees? And my 10-year-old daughter did this so beautifully to me the other day. She goes, "Oh, Mom, old people," when I didn't understand how to split my screens on my computer. You know, I was trying to pull stuff across to the other side of
Yeah.
my second screen. She was, old people, you know. Talk to us about this a little bit.
Us old people with menopause.
Yes.
So for me, I wrote earlier, you meet people where they are, not where you are. But that requires you to be vulnerable. That requires you to say, I don't know. And that sometimes it requires you to people to expose you that how does this auntie not know how to do this? So for me, there is such great power in reverse mentoring. Sorry, is there a echo on my side?
Not
Sorry.
anymore.
Now.
Okay. Generational diversity is something we don't talk enough about. It's very easy to say the younger generation don't want to work, they don't want to do this, they're not like us. And I'm like, they are not like us. So what can we do to meet each other halfway? And reverse mentoring to me is one of the most beautiful gifts you can give yourself. And I say that proudly as a Generation Xer. But it requires you laughing at yourself sometimes because the stuff that they know, I have, like you, I have a young daughter, but mine is 14, and somehow I've transitioned from mum to bruh. And to decode their language, it's like a learning curve for me, but it impacts, and I think someone mentioned it in here, it's about your relatability. If you understand the language that people are speaking to you in, broader than ethnic languages, it fundamentally shifts the power of relationships. And when I say power, in terms of what can grow and co-create
Exactly.
and develop. So
Absolutely.
reverse mentoring, Marilyn, I'm all for it.
I agree.
Like my
Love
learning
that.
curve is like this 90% of the time. That's why I am very much keen on AI, but it requires us to be, you
Yeah.
know what, how did I not know that? Or how did I, there's no shame in it. But if you have that safety, you can laugh about it, learn from it, and move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
fantastic.
and
We are coming to the end. Carabello?
no, I was saying it also goes beyond the generational thing. It's also a culture, it's diversity broadly. Culture, religion, and everything, because you need that open-mindedness as a coach. When you are in a session with this person who is stuck in their thinking because of their conditioning, to say, how do I move them based on this? And to bring yourself to their side to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, fantastic, Carabella. I think that's so important, in terms of how do you then also then relate. I think, we've got 3 minutes left. I thought Mulder's hand was up. Mulder, was that a new question? Okay, Mulder's now disappeared. Mulder, you are back.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say that coaches should also be able to coach everyone. So sometimes we have to be aware of maybe there is no way for me to be relatable to this person. And I probably shouldn't coach them.
Yep. And I think that's where where the chemistry is so important as well, right? And I don't know if you ladies want to add anything, but maybe that's our final sort of topic around the chemistry between the coach and the coachee, and then also, Manisha, you said before you've actually declined assignments because it just didn't gel for you, right? Anyone would like to add? We've got maybe 1 or 2 minutes left.
So I think it's core to what your non-negotiables are, and the chemistry session to me, every person should have at least 2 or 3 people that they have a chemistry session with, because as Carabella so rightfully said, it's different kinds of relatability. When I say no to work, it's not because I'm in a privileged position to say no, but we both have to be teachable. We both have to be respectful. And those are the things for me that are the core tenets of a coaching relationship.
Fantastic. Melisha, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of what I think was an absolutely amazing session. Three wonderful women who have shared their journeys, their experiences, and some of their, their expertise in this area. And also today is an amazing day. It is Helena's birthday. So maybe you can put a couple of birthday wishes in the chat for her just to say thank you.
I'd love
And
that.
hopefully she's going to have an amazing party after this. But
Thank you.
Helena, Carabello, and Melisha, thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Hopefully we can do this in future again. To the team at Novia One, thank you for putting this together. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into this, Verity, and the team, Petrus, Katlego, thank you. This is amazing. And we hopefully will see you next week at the AI and innovation event. You know, you want a seat at the table, make sure you know where AI is going, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
ladies.
Everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.